Here's Tucker Carlson responding, as you knew Tucker Carlson would, to what we saw in Afghanistan this weekend. And I guess the only surprise is that he didn't say it was a function of black people. But here's Tucker Carlson.
But first, since Kabul has just fallen, it might be worth asking the most obvious question of all. Why did the Taliban win? How did the 6th century triumph over the 21st century? There are indications that the single most notorious and reviled government in the world, primitive people famous for their brutality, rigidity, and humorlessness, are more popular in parts of Afghanistan than they were when we expelled the mullahs from Kandahar 20 years ago. They don't seem to be less popular. So how did that happen? What's the answer? We ought to pause to think about that. Let's not just blow past it like it was an act of God.
Pause it for a second. I want you to think. Pause it. I want you, as the audience, to think about what could be the answer. Could it be the bombings? Could it be the slaughter of civilians?
Widespread torture, prisoner abuse.
Torture, yes. We're going to pay people to hand in their neighbors and torture them. Could it be the occupation? Could it be any of those things? Anybody? No, you're wrong. You're wrong. Could it be the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners, 8 months ago under Trump, that like people are like, oh, no, you're not sending these guys back at us. Continue.
We ought to pause to think about that. Let's not just blow past it like it was an act of God. It's not. What is the answer? Well, countries are very complicated, all of them, so there are likely many answers. But one of those answers may be that the population of Afghanistan has firmly rejected what our leaders were selling it over 20 years. It turns out that the people of Afghanistan don't actually want gender studies symposia. They didn't actually buy the idea that men can become pregnant. They thought that was ridiculous. They don't hate their own masculinity. They don't think it's toxic.
Wait,
they like the patriarchy.
I thought we were the ones operating in the 21st century, and they were in the 6th century.
Well, that's the point, that we're imposing upon them things like...
Well,
modernity is bad,
right? That's what
when it actually means that women have rights, but it's good when it comes to killing machines.
Amish Tucker Carlson.
All right, keep going here.
Masculinity. They don't think it's toxic. They like the patriarchy. Some of their women like it too. So now they're getting it all back.
Jealous.
So maybe it's possible that we failed in Afghanistan because the entire neoliberal program is grotesque. It's a joke. It's contrary to human nature. It answers none of our deepest human desires. It is merely a performance staged for the performer. It's not even supposed to improve
hear any more of
your
this.
life.
You gave away the ghost. Listen, it wasn't the occupation. It wasn't the killing. It wasn't the drones. It wasn't the bombings.
It wasn't the killing of your uncle at your wedding or your neighbor or the maiming of your grandma.
To torture them at Bagram Air Base. No, it wasn't any of that. It was the billions of dollars we must have spent on the gender studies programs that we spent there.
Which is called neoliberalism.
Yeah, I was just
somehow.
I was just going to say, like, Milton Friedman, saying, like, we need to, like, introduce they, them to people. Like, what are you talking about?
No,
That's
he's just throwing in a bunch of terms. And the idea,
elites.
like, of the $1 trillion that we spent there, I have no doubt that there is several hundreds of dollars that were spent on gender studies
and gender neutral
in Kabul. And yeah, exactly. But I would be willing to wager just about everything I own that your average Afghani would have looked at you if you said, like, do you feel oppressed by the idea that we're pushing this concept of toxic masculinity on you? And they would just look at you like, are you out of your mind? That is really impressive stuff. That it's the reason why they were so excited for the Taliban to come back in is they don't want their children to they don't want their girls to go to school.
Well, yeah. Segment tonight is how is he going to shoehorn critical race theory into this?
That's right. CRT, because we were pushing that being taught in kindergarten, apparently.
And also, I mean, I thought the Taliban, the whole subjugation of women, isn't that something that he's against? But now he's saying that it's a natural response to women and gender studies. We all know it's a
you let
little
him
more
stay in the
aligned with
kitchen,
him
you're-
than he thinks.
When you let them stay in the kitchen, you're really making them reach their own potential.
There's this-
All right, that's it. We got to sign off. For our Peacock viewers, we will see you tomorrow. And for the rest of you, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Just want to say, there's a story, 2015. I don't know if this is what Tucker means, but U.S. soldiers told to ignore sexual abuse of boys by Afghan allies. That's not what I understand CRT to be about, but
That's right. You're pushing that whole notion. I mean, look, that's what the Taliban will take like young boys as
That's
well.
true.
I mean, it is. They're horrible, but I think for many people in the countryside, it's like, you know what? They're not going to deal with us. Every now and then, maybe they'll come around, but for the most part, we just live our lives and we don't get bombed.
Also, he has no understanding of how extremism breeds. Like, the conditions we've created make extremism sound pretty much like a better alternative for a lot of people if it's that, active.
well, it's a literal process of brutalization. Like, this is a place that's been at war for decades and decades and decades.
And I think it's just survival.
Yeah.
I think it's just you go with whoever's the biggest, kid on the block at that moment. And if I can sell, fertilizer to them, I'll sell fertilizer to them. They're going to use it as an EID. I mean,
And from a
IUD.
political perspective, they're selling strength and like self-actualization or some brand of nationalism or whatever.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.